G'day guys, Justin here, coming at you again with another NBA Player of the Day video, this time for October 21st, 2017. I managed to get through it all pretty quickly today. We did have 11 games, but nonetheless I was able to get through it. I had a pretty easy decision to make. Blake Griffin was about the only other person that was in contention there at one point. We did have the likes of Giannis putting up a career high there. Numbers-wise, we did have Kevin Durant and Steph Curry putting up some pretty good numbers themselves. Unfortunately, the ejection and the loss really hurt them. Ben Simmons had a pretty consistent game there for the Sixers, but fortunately enough for me, my player of the day today for October 21st, 2017 is Marc Gasol of the Memphis Grizzlies in a win against the Golden State Warriors. As I mentioned, Durant and Curry were looking pretty good there at one point. Unfortunately, didn't get the win, and the numbers didn't suffice as far as efficiency-wise. I will get into that a little bit more as far as Gasol is concerned with the 7 turnovers, which was quite impactful for him. I believe he had over 50% of the team's turnovers, but nonetheless, his overall production and impact on the team was far more sufficient than anyone else. To me, he had a .203 impact rating compared to everyone else across the board today. LaMarcus Aldridge was another player who also had a good game, who was awfully close. But nonetheless, I've gone with Gasol. Gasol had 34 points, 14 rebounds, only 2 offensive, so predominantly a defensive game here for Marc. As we know, former Defensive Player of the Year, that is to be expected. So the 14 rebounds, 2 assists, 1 steal and 2 blocks, so decent numbers for a big guy, and he had tremendous impact across the floor for them. 50% shooting from the field and 50% from deep, which was quite impressive, and again, 94.1 from the stripe, so making the most of his scoring opportunities there. Only had the 1 foul, so it speaks of an efficient game as far as contact and defending the ball. However, his usage was a little questionable with 7 turnovers. It's one of the higher turnover rates that we've had all season for any player, particularly a big. In 36 minutes, that's quite expensive to the team. He's just lucky that he was able to contribute in a fairly all-round manner and played a hell of a defensive game to win it here for the Grizzlies against the Warriors. Now, as I move into the breakdown here, you'll find a lot of points for Gasol came from the free throw stripe. I do believe he had 14 to 16 points alone from the charity stripe, which says a lot. His field game, though, at 50%, his free throw game at over 90%, his three-point game at over 50% speaks of an efficient shooting night nonetheless. But when a lot of your point production comes from the free throw line, it does bring into question your overall game. But nonetheless, he is my player of the game, and we'll get into the breakdown here. So he started off his night with an assist from the post out to Harrison for 3. Now, the post game, it was a back and forth situation here in this particular play. Harrison and Gasol back and forth, basically to make sure Gasol got deep down the post. Once he got down into the post, he dragged Draymond down off his assignment in Harrison, and he wasn't able to double back enough. So a late contest by Draymond after sagging off for the open shot, and he made it nonetheless. We then began with his first points for the night from the free throw line. He did drive and was fouled on the play by Steph Curry. Thought it was Pachulia, but it wasn't. It was Curry, and he made 1 of 2 from the stripe there. He then had a block on Kevin Durant. Now, one thing I will say about the Warriors, they were very, very sooky in this game, and this is something that I don't think they're going to like, and that's the fact that ref baiting is. They basically got told at the start of the year any ref baiting from any players will not be tolerated, and the calls will only be justly made on what the umpire and what the referee sees. So for Durant to have a bit of a sook here after having his shot blocked from about 3 feet was a little ticky-tacky for me, typical Durant. Curry, this also resulted obviously in Durant's ejection later in the game, and same with Steph Curry, who was also ejected for basically crying over nothing. But the defensive game here by Gasol was simply to roll out of space, which he was covering. He wasn't really on a direct opponent with Pachulia and that whatnot, not in the play. So he was more covering space, which allowed him to roll through and get the block here, 1 of his 2 blocks for the night. He had an open 10-foot floater for 2. He had spread the floor from Pachulia. There was a drive on the baseline there, which just allowed him to stay open, catch the ball, which was pretty easy, and then drive in and just hit the floater. No assist needed, but it was over Pachulia. He had a drive from a triple threat position and posted to fade away for 2 points on JaVale McGee. This is something, again, that I've mentioned previously with that European-type player, is their ability to, it is soft in a sense is that they don't want to bang down low all the time, but they've got this ability to spread the floor and they can take you from a triple threat position, basically from anywhere on the floor, and do what they need. And I think that's where the versatility factor comes in for someone like a Gasol, who, although is primarily a defensive player, does have that ability to come through and play an offensive role like he did tonight. So as I mentioned, he drove from the triple threat position, was able to get low on the post and hit that 2-point fadeaway on McGee. Something we've talked about previously, and I mean, it was common with DeAndre Jordan, Hassan Whiteside, LeBron James, and Anthony Davis. All these guys are scoring their points because they're able to get to the basket because no one can stop them. It's the way the rules are. It's the way defenders play, because there aren't really any great interior defenders anymore. I mean, you can probably name 10 good to great defenders in the league right now, and everyone else really sags from there. So that's why someone like a Gasol, who at 7 foot and 240 pounds, is able to get into the post really easy like that. And with their agility, they can really manipulate it. So nonetheless, that's why he was able to score. We had a pick and roll situation with Mike Conley where he sets the screen on Klay Thompson. He was able to pick and pop there out onto the baseline for an open jumper with a late contest again by Thompson, who at this point had just let Conley go to the hoop, realised David West was somewhat floating in the area, and we were closing 2-on-1. He just kicked it out to Gasol. Very casual and late attempt on defence there by Klay Thompson that was not going to do anything with the baseline 2. Had an open 3, which was quite surprising, again, with a big man, but nonetheless the European style of play. He just faded out to the top of the key. It was a very late contest from Draymond, who showed no respect. Again, may I highlight the fact that in back-to-back games for the Warriors, you've had 3 big men score 90 points with Draymond, the best defender in the league, Green, bullshit, playing against these guys. So I think you really need to bring into account the quality of opposition Draymond's having these great defensive nights against. It's simply not a factor. Why you wouldn't want the best defender in the league playing on the most informed offensive threat, particularly as a big man, on the opposition player, to stop a run like that is beyond me. Again, it's just another thing to add when it comes to assessing Draymond as the best defensive player in the league. I really don't see it when you've got stuff like this happening. You've really got to show a bit of common sense. Go, well, hang on a sec. He's played on DeMarcus Cousins, Anthony Davis, and Marc Gasol, and over the 3 nights they've combined for 70 points and what? So that's 104 points over 2 nights between 3 guys with the perennial defensive player of the year playing against them. To me, it's just garbage. We then had a pump fake on Green, and I thought he was very lucky to get the free throws on this player. I thought he'd landed and then went to drive, and that was something the NBA said they were going to pick up on this year, is calling free throws and calling 2 shots on guys who happen to throw the fake up and then continue to drive. I know that was meant to not be assessed as 2 points. A 2 free throw shooting attempts, to which they did, and I mean, he made both of them, so he certainly capitalised on that. Draymond, again, very weak defence here. He left him open, simply pump fake, knowing he left him last time he went to drive, and yeah, I mean, he caused the foul. It should have been a side ball rather than a driving 2 shots. I'm unaware as to whether they're in the bonus or not, but it certainly wasn't a shooting 2. He certainly wasn't shooting 2. He then tried to make post position, and Iguodala, one of the better defenders on that team, just simply tried to hold him and restrict him illegally, and he gained the 2 free throws and made both there. To which point Iguodala then began to sook. Again, it was a clear hold. Whenever there's been something absolutely clear that's called on the Warriors or something clearly let go that shouldn't be called, they seem to sook, and I believe they're just trying to get this entitled sense of being a champion, which happens to a lot of championship teams. You've only got to look at the Lakers of the 2000s. You've only got to look at the way the Miami Heat were reffed, and now obviously the Golden State Warriors are being reffed. They're trying to get that preferential treatment, and when it's not there, they sook, and then they suffer the consequences for it. So again, after the technical from Iggy, Gasol was given the technical free throw, and he made that. And I think that speaks volumes of Gasol's ability to shoot the free throw, in that a big man is shooting a technical free throw. Similar to, I mean, obviously Shaq used to do it, but I think that was more of a joke. When you have a big man shooting your technical free throws, you know you're in a bit of trouble, particularly when they're making them. He had another pump fake situation. It's something I really think defines the European player at the moment, is their ability as a big man to pump fake it and go forward to the basket. So, I mean, he's pump faked and drove. Pachulia fouled him, and he made both free throws. So that was just Pachulia trying to chase loose ends. Again, no great defense there. He's just simply let him through and then tried to hack a Shaq, so to speak, and it hasn't really worked. As we continued through, he grabbed the defensive foul, leading to a fast break and another 2 free throws to him. So after the defensive rebound, he's thrown the outlet. I believe it was to Connolly on the wing, who simply waited for him to come down, give him the ball, and Pachulia with the grab on the way through. Only way to stop him. Another 2 free throws, and he made both. So again, Gasol just running laps around these big guys of the Warriors, and their defensive ability really coming unhinged here, which is lucky that someone like a Kevin Love and LeBron James didn't try and take advantage of that for the 5 games they tried to last year, because I believe the contest would have been a hell of a lot different. Granted, there wasn't a lot of defensive capabilities played on there by the Cavaliers in that series, which allowed for Durant and Curry to dominate the series. But I do feel that had they kept attacking the rim, the series probably would have been a bit closer and a hell of a lot more of a shootout compared to what it already was. We then had probably the player of the night across the entire league, which was a pretty cool spot to see. You had Gasol at the top of the 3, who simply, again, another bloody pump fake. This time on Klay Thompson, they tried to rotate a lot of players through on Marc Gasol. They had, as I mentioned, Pachulia, they had McGee, they had Thompson, they even had Draymond. So trying to do all these jobs on these guys, all these jobs for these guys wasn't working, and Gasol was just lighting them up left, right, and centre. He had the pump fake on Thompson, who bit. He then faked on the drive, which sent Thompson screaming back towards the free throw line. By the time he realised Gasol hadn't gone anywhere and spun around, the shot was already going up. And he nailed that 3. It was unbelievable. It was probably the play of the night so far, and particularly, well, for me anyway. And for the big guy to be able to do something like that on a guy who's, Klay Thompson's a great defender. No, he's not. Seriously, you got a big guy at 7 foot pump faking you as a guard when you're constantly guarding smaller men out there on the perimeter, and you're falling for that kind of stuff. It's just unacceptable, particularly for someone who's meant to be an elite defender in this league. There was then a foul by Thompson on the drive to the hoop. This was just simple stuff. Gasol working his way inside. You can't touch a player anymore, so it's a foul. And he made the free throws. This is something that the big guys are really starting to use against Golden State, and something that I think the league needs to pay attention to. You've just got to drive and penetrate on these guys, because they're just going to try and hack at you. They're not the greatest defensive team. They're a good defensive outlet as a team, but as far as individuals are concerned, in certain situations, they're borderline hopeless. And I believe this is what's been exposed in the past 2 games. It is only early, so there's plenty of time to fix it, but it doesn't look great. So after the drive to the hoop and making both, he then had an assist to Ennis on a 15-footer, working from the perimeter there. Ennis just popped out straight to the foul line, bang, made the shot. There's no big deal there. As we continued through, he then had a post-up on David West, and David West being older, he certainly took advantage of that, did Gasol, and simply ran across the lane for the hook shot for 2. Was probably fouled, no call there, but nonetheless there were a couple of soft fouls given to him early, so you can expect there to be a bit of payback in the back of the referee's mind. Particularly on a Golden State game, it's just how it works. There's then another late, this time it was Draymond on offense, and it was a late contest by Gasol, who was lucky to get away with it, but he got nothing but ball on a Draymond Green 3 and blocked that ball pretty well. Draymond obviously got the shot up. The ball, I think, only went probably 15 feet at best. It was a good late defensive play, lured Draymond into a late sense of security, but it was a very, very, very dangerous shot to take. It's similar to how Draymond lets guys take these shots in a late contest situation in trying to alter the shot. Gasol's lucky it worked for him. It wasn't the greatest play, but it worked. So there's not much you can say a little bit about it, but other than the late contest, he did the right thing in that situation. Then had another situation where he was being guarded by Klay Thompson. So he forced him down into the post, and he worked him pretty well and faded away to 12 feet and hit the shot over him. He'd been working on this all night with several other guys. We worked further up here to the point where he did the same thing on Draymond earlier. So he did the same thing to Draymond on the play before, where he just caught the ball, faded away, bang. The basket was there. That's just how it is. So he was on fire from the low block. He couldn't be stopped at the foul line, and honestly, anywhere he put up a shot, he was a genuine danger to make. There was then a desperation foul from Thompson, which led to both free throws after hustling for the ball. And then he made the technical shot for each technical given to Curry and Durant, who were both ejected, which eventually led to a Memphis win over the Warriors. I believe that was the Warriors' first loss of the season. And it should be one that they really wake up to, for the simple fact that when something wasn't going their way, they couldn't control themselves, and it resulted in them losing a game. It resulted in them losing their 2 best players to technicals at the end of the game. It's not a great look. particularly for credible guys like a Kevin Durant and a Steph Curry, who are perennial MVP candidates and perennial all-stars and dominant players. I mean, Durant's a top 50 player of all time. Some will make an argument for Curry, but he's still got a little while to get there. Those two MVPs are good, but they're not outstanding, so to speak. But yeah, just in summary, Marc Gasol finished the night with 34 points, 14 rebounds, only 2 offensive, so predominantly defensive game there again. 2 assists, 1 steal, 2 blocks, 50% from the field, 50% from 3, and over 94% from the stripe. Only the 1 foul, so he was quite efficient in his defence. Unfortunately, he was wasteful with his possession offensively, even more so with 7 turnovers. So you can imagine he's probably cost himself a 40-point night here, which would have been tremendous, and maybe even a few offensive rebounds. So what's to say he doesn't have a 40 and 17 night here had he been just even a little bit more efficient. And over 36 minutes, the turnovers don't look great, but nonetheless, I can't stress that the way he was able to make up for these turnovers was simply getting low to the basket and drawing fouls from guys who weren't able to contain him and who simply don't know how to defend in the low block. I do mention again, he's the 4th of big man to receive my Player of the Day award. The only other person who's not predominantly a big man is LeBron James, who, I mean, is obviously a bigger guy and a bigger perimeter player. But overall, we've had LeBron on the 17th, Hassan Whiteside on the 18th, DeAndre Jordan on the 19th, Anthony Davis yesterday, and Marc Gasol today. 3 of those 5 players were in winning sides, so you can see how that goes. And only 1 player scored less than .200 on my scoring chart to win Player of the Game, and that was DeAndre Jordan. So I'm Player of the Day, so being DeAndre Jordan. So you've really got to get up there and you've really got to be super efficient above everything else and have by far away the most efficiently standout game. And not only that, the most impactful game for your side. So this is overall what I'm grading it on. You might, I mean, as I said, Giannis had a great game, but there are just little things that impact it. So, I mean, even something, this is where it's quite skewed to a scale, but I mean, Giannis missed the only free throw of that team. He missed 1 of 2 free throws for that team, so there's minus 50 in a sense from that for the impact he had on the team. They did win, but the impact he has on the team there is a little detrimental. I mean, similar to someone who might have, say, 1 of 2 team blocks, well, that's a bonus 50, whereas even missing 1 of 2 free throws is a minus 50. So it does have its counter arguments, but that's just where the skew-if comes. I mean, who's to say that Giannis isn't going to be my player of the week? He's certainly up there, and as far as consistency across his first 3 games, I don't think there's been a better player in the league. So he's certainly leading my player of the week argument, but as far as being the outright player of the day for total impact across the board, just hasn't been there. But I really doubt that he's going to struggle to win my player of the week, that's for sure. So again, in summary, my player of the day for the 21st of October was Marc Gasol of the Memphis Grizzlies in a win and what would be adjudged by some possibly an upset win over the Golden State Warriors. He finished with a total of .203 for his impact score for me. 34 points, 14 rebounds. Again, most of those defensive rebounds, so a very defensive-minded game. 2 assists, 1 steal, 2 blocks, 50% from the field, 50% from deep, over 94% from the stripe. Only the 1 foul, 7 turnovers in 36 minutes. Doesn't look good, but nonetheless, he was able to make up for it, as I mentioned, by going low and scoring at the basket and drawing the opponent to foul and causing the rotation amongst the defenders who weren't able to simply control him, particularly the likes of a Pachulia, of a West, of a McGee, and of your perennial defensive player of the year, whatever, Draymond Green. So, again, player of the day, Marc Gasol. You can follow me on Twitter, Justin_G_Bryan. Leave a comment and let me know who your player of the day was. Who do you think I should have paid a bit more respect to? Who do you think is going to be your player of the week? My player of the week at the moment is certainly Giannis, but we'll have to see how that goes. At the end of the week, I'll probably base that more or less off statistical off the stat line there rather than overall impact, because it's going to be very skewy in a sense. But yeah, again, my player of the day for the 21st of October is Marc Gasol of the Memphis Grizzlies, and I will see you guys for my player of the day on October 22nd tomorrow with 3 games in the NBA. Cheers.